Hello, I'd like you to see something right now. This will hopefully be an optimal video, probably on YouTube and not Instagram TV due to length. Okay, my laptop will be used to cite sources. My laptop. Okay. And to start this off, the subject of this video is, can capitalism save special education? What you are probably thinking right now is schools being unreasonably closed due to the power of teacher unions is the reason why I'm bringing this up. Well, for one thing, I'll have another video that talks more about that, But let's first look at this. About the author. To start this book off, 0 political views will be mentioned. This is my essay, by the way, my essay. 0 political views will be mentioned. If political views are mentioned, they are, at a coincidence, a possible source of poor educational outcomes. 0 offense is meant. Other political views may appear to be asserted for the sake of a possible better outcome for students. These are only ideas. Maybe the author personally does not agree with them, but would like them to be put in consideration. Perhaps the author is a devil's advocate in the sense that the author is not in support of the ideas, but would still like them to be considered. What will be found in this book, I call it essay, is a proposed system to improve educational outcomes for students. There is a specific emphasis on special education students to demonstrate how school choice could help them. It would be appreciated if educators reading this article did not take offense. The article will advocate the teachers to be paid more based on their own performance. That proposal would be more fair to teachers, and it would potentially mean raises for some teachers. Okay, starting off, you don't know my political beliefs. You don't. Am I right wing? Am I left wing? Am I woke? Am I not woke? You don't know. Do I like Black Lives Matter? Do I not like Black Lives Matter? You don't know. Okay. Now, as for that obvious part, let's take a look. I highly advise people watch episode 1582 of the Joe Rogan Experience with Alex Berenson on Spotify. That is 154 minutes, more than that long, published on December 2020. Okay. I said I would use my laptop to cite sources. Let's take a look. I hope you will see. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to show you the laptop. Okay. You see? You see it? Okay. Now, put that down. Take another look. Now, Alex Berenson likewise says it doesn't matter who he voted for. He said that on the podcast. Okay. Alex Berenson, he is going to make a quote here. He kind of looks like me, by the way. Okay. Now let's take another look. I believe one of that is Twitter page, the source. Okay. These are from a while ago, 5 hours, or actually pretty recent. I shall show you the post. Okay, here he's post world.ca.gov. He's saying he works at the extended rare community and he has good health that morning. Then he got a second choice and he died. Details vary. Vayer's ID. Okay. Yeah, I highly recommend you watch the entire episode. And I will make another episode of my series that goes more into the unfairness of that. But as for now, let's go into more about how education could be changed regardless of the current obvious reasons. Okay? Okay. Now moving on to the second page of the paragraph of the essay. Page 2 in the essay is 18 pages long. So I will maybe summarize it, and I will make sure that it's nice and cited. Okay. For you, there have been people who were formerly special education students in school districts where there was no school choice. Many would argue that they were better off with the lack of school choice. Much to the contrary, ideas expressed in the book, could refute that claim. In another book, I will reveal the specific student in mind in the writing of the article. He was not allowed to take calculus in high school and a number of AP courses. In total, he only took 2 AP courses. Only 2. And a guy. He could have moved much farther ahead in his academic career. Despite that, the system seemed to give him the shorter end of the stick. One possibility may be worth considering, and that is, had the jobs of salaries of school staff not depended so highly on his attendance to one school, if that was motivating, okay? So had the teachers union not been in charge, had his attendance to the school not affected so heavily the amount, that might be worth considering. Okay, later I will show you a cited source. Okay, now he is a current accounting student, I'm not going to name him, who by much fortune in a summer of taking 9 units of classes is allowed to leave his community college a semester early. He also faces the necessity of abiding by licensing laws in order to get a job in a community. He must get a CPA license. He also has to take internships that require social situations that he struggles with. Had he been able to take more units of his college education in high school, he would have been farther along. Facts. Perhaps the minimum wage is another reason why he is less allowed by the law to move ahead. What if he could get a job with his skill set and a wage below the minimum? Would he need internships as much? And if he was perhaps law enforcement or expanded law enforcement could help him. Think about it, it's another idea I'm proposing. In order to help people that are autistic or learning disabled, train police to also be social workers. Train social worker police. Okay. This could be blamed on a simple fact. No competition means no incentive to be more efficient. Perhaps he was convinced that the programs that he took in school, high school in particular, helped him. Perhaps they did. But if there was a free market environment to see which program was better based off a voucher or something else, perhaps it would have done better for him. A more exact solution for the anonymous student and many others will be stated under the discussion heading of the article. The discussion heading section is the last section. Okay? No affiliation in particular. Okay? I have a lot of sources. I will cite all of them. And I am self-funded. Now let's move on. Page 3, blank. Okay? Page 4, summary. There's a page break. So we have the summary. Would a person want the best education outcome for his or herself or themselves? Would one want the people in his or her community to be well-educated as possible? Would one want the people in their community to be as well-educated as possible? Even people who are not fond of government involvement have stated that education is an externality, a necessary element of economic altruism, even in a free market. By that logic, would one want a choice? Would one want a choice of what to pick as far as institutions? One would imagine so. Would one rather go to school A, school B, school C, etc.? Options someone may not get. Maybe this decision does not matter to some people. Would one want his or her or their current community members to be well educated? Current community members to be well educated? Most would. If one is still uncertain, what if capitalistic evidence indicates that competition beats stagnation? Even in education, even for special education. What if? What if? It's a what if question. Hypothetically, if there is one store and is paid based off how many customers go, what is the incentive for it to improve? What is the incentive for it to bring in the best educators? What is the incentive for it to look for the root cause of academic distress? My key word is school choice, and also I'll add another key word, education innovation. Education innovation. Now I'll give you some counter arguments I've encountered for school choice. One of the possible solutions to the problem that I proposed. Okay? School counter arguments. This article intends to persuade beyond all possible counter arguments. By that logic, a trusted source shall be used to provide counter arguments. For the article to overcome. We don't want the counter arguments to overcome the article. We want the article, or in this case, the video, to overcome the counter arguments. Okay? That source is PBS. At the end of the article, there was a conscious agreement. Okay? I agree with the end of the article. Smaller class size would be the solution because there were several problems with vouchers, such as private schools being picky based on religion or ability PBS. If class sizes were, we got a page break, smaller, that would make things better. Okay, I'm going to show you the source. Okay. School choice. is bad. All right, let's take a look at the source. And there was PBS. Now let's take another look. School choice, PBS. I believe PBS is a credible source. Public broadcasting. Okay. The battle over school choice. PBS, the choice. Synthesis. The case for vouchers. Let's look at the case against vouchers. The case against school choice. Okay, so we have Forbes, we have HuffPost. That's a possible one I could bring in here. But I want something that is more, trusted. www.3ws.pbs.org, choice con vouchers. School choice, the case against vouchers, okay? So you see it. I think you can see it. Okay. You can see it very well. You see it definitely. School choice, the case against vouchers, the battle over. PBS.org gave me some things, and I have already listed their arguments. You can go and see the source for yourself. It's right there. You can look it up. You could. Now let's think of ways that we can counter our argument. Okay. Or for ways that we can refute the counter argument. Now let's see. This is an educational piece. Perhaps some educators do not want people to read. Political beliefs will not be shared. You're not going to get my political beliefs. You will not get them. But could it be more than a coincidence how liberal ideas aligning with the Democratic Party, often taught in schools that are ran by people who are paid by the amount of students who enter their school, teachers union, often are taught by schools that are run by people who are paid by the amount of students who enter the school's teachers union. They are paid more due to the lack of school choice. There is no incentive for schools to improve. The Democratic Party often goes against school choice, and the entire system calls capitalism into question, as I understand. Capitalism is called into question. Yeah. A lot of democratic socialists called into question. A lot of times liberal ideas are taught in public education. A lot of times. And I actually can show you a TED Talk. TED Talk, liberal bias. If you watch the entire thing, okay, I can show it to you. It's on the YouTube videos. Kathleen Donovan TEDx, liberal ideas. Okay, and I will show you the entire thing. You can look it up yourself. I'm not hiding anything from you. Liberal ideas in academia, Kathleen Donovan TEDx, SJFC. Hopefully you see a YouTube thing. You see the URL you do. By that logic, if teachers have tones or they have decisions on what they can cover, sometimes it's not as vanilla as they make it sound. Because what if they add in jokes? What if they add in ideas? What if they have tones? That's things that she covers in this TED Talk. Okay? And then for a while, I go off and I tell you things about things like that. Well, how about I go over the whole thing that should be taught in school, okay? Being more detailed, public education and TED Talks are credible. TED Talks are a very credible source. I'll put that in the description. Being more detailed, public education does not teach about tax. It simply does not. And this is one thing where we can see a bias. In taxes, there are 3 types: progressive, regressive, and flat. In progressive, the more the income one makes, the more they get taxed. This would discourage innovation, people making more money, business creation, and cause people and businesses to leave, possibly, wherever they would have been the tax base for. Wherever they would have been the tax base for. Wherever they're getting taxed. And what if higher income people end up hiring tax attorneys to avoid paying the taxes? The outcome would be inflation if the government spending still occurred, as if taxes were actually followed by the higher income people. In the following paragraphs, a number of TED Talks or TEDx Talks will be cited, and TED Talk and TED, whether or not it's TED or TEDx, are the same company, is a credible source of information. See Williams, 2012. By that logic, a TED or TEDx talk would be a valid source. This could be used to prove the argument of this essay, and that adds more validity to the essay. Okay, so let's see though. I will show you the article where it shows that TED Talks are credible. Okay, let's look at the article. For one thing, TED Talks themselves say they're credible. They say it themselves. Okay, you see, they say it themselves, and they're .com. You can see the thing there. Okay. Moving down, I shall show you something else. I'll show you something else right now. Okay. Writing.msu.edu.edu. The writing center. Okay, you see. None of that came up. Let's take post and look now. Featured resource. TED Talk. That states the credibility of some sources I'm about to give you, okay? Okay. Being more detailed, a public education does not teach about taxes. It simply does not. There are 3 types. And like I've said, I already talked to you about that. And I have talked to you, and if higher income people end up hiring tax attorneys to avoid paying the taxes, the outcome would be inflation if the government spending still occurred, as if taxes were actually followed by the higher income people. You may think I'm going off on a limb here. I'm talking about taxes, and that's going off on a limb, but you still should watch. In the following paragraphs, a number of TED Talks, TEDx Talks will be mentioned, and TED is a credible source. Williams, 2012. By that logic, TED or TEDx Talk would be a valid source. They could be used to prove an argument of the essay. Now, that adds more validity. Inflation would result in other currencies being higher by comparison. People may think that's good. What about tourism? What about people coming over? Some may argue this would result in other countries buying U.S. products more. But with very lax immigration laws and little to no manufacturing due to renewable energy, see why renewables can't save the planet. Michael Schellenberger, TED Talks. I shall show that to you. Now let's take a look. Michael Schellenberger. Michael Schellenberger. Now let's take a look at his TED Talks. Okay, they're on YouTube videos. Why renewables can't save the planet. Michael Schellenberger, TED.com Talks. You see it? See my finger? I'm pointing to it. Okay. That's my thumb. Now let's go on. Being the only source, how could foreign currency help? What would tourists want to buy? And this is not to be xenophobic. It is only logic that could be examined. And this is not anti-environmental. It would simply detail perhaps overregulation in poor energy resources proposed. In the following paragraphs, the effects of immigration and excessive environmental regulations will be examined. Off on limb explained. It can be quite alarming, the effects of climate change. With that being the case, nuclear power and perhaps other sources are better. Only renewables could be problematic. That is especially true if renewable energy is subsidized and not innovated. See Bjørn Lomborg TED Talks. Bjørn Lomborg TED Talks. Bjørn, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Bjørn Lomborg TED Talks. Okay, TED. Now let's take a good look. Okay. Economics of climate change innovation. I'm going to click on the link and I'm going to have you show it. I'm going to show it to you. Okay, you see? You see?
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly.
Not that. Okay, economics of climate change innovation. Bjørn Lomborg. Okay, you see the name? Hopefully you see everything. Okay. And I just cited it. Once again, capitalistic competition, as with schools, could, in this case it would, environmental it would, schools, we're still trying to figure it out, could result in a better outcome. To add more details about businesses, if one is to open a business, they are more likely to shut down if they are sued. In sole proprietorship, if an owner is sued, they could lose everything they own. As soon as it is made, a corporation getting sued would not affect them as much, possibly. It would solely affect the corporation, money invested in it, and its standing depending on the seriousness of the charge, depending on the seriousness. We could run through this all day, but the point is why flat tax are better. I can make more videos about this. If taxes are high on shareholders, people are less likely to invest. Thus, the creation of new corporations are less likely. Thus, the creation of businesses are less likely. If someone's afraid of getting sued, they're less likely to make one. Okay. Some may argue, if a corporation is sued, what about shareholders? They would be allowed to leave, if I understand correctly. You're going to fact check me, go away. I will accept the criticism. With that being the case, adding more immigrants to a nation with already high unemployment rate would not necessarily bring up industries. Some conclude immigrants are risk takers almost by definition and will start companies. People do not exist in the abstract. Plus, if companies are more difficult to start due to regulations, how could that be done? So having liability, regulations, and taxes would create less businesses, but having less liability, regulations, and taxes would create more business, okay? If one wants to look at an overlap, if renewable energy is the only source legal, that would be regulation slowing down businesses. If renewables is the only source advocated by environmentalists, then those solutions are probably not credible. To add more on immigration, would non-citizens be charged to sightsee? What if it became taboo, illegal, etc. to question immigration, perhaps due to phenomenon cancel culture? Listen, you don't know my political views, you don't know if I'm woke or not, you don't know my feelings about this, I'm just giving possible solutions. How could the higher by comparison non-US currency help then? Plus, if United States has the highest number of immigrants per year, wefforum.org, as in, now let's look at the wefforum.org. Let's take a look at it. I think I can do this 45-minute video. And, well, wefforum.org. And it's actually on the Dan Crenshaw episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Dan Crenshaw, Joe Rogan Experience. Okay. Disagrees. Now let's take another look, though. Let's look at the videos. In the podcast, I talk about the United States has more immigrants every year than any other nation. Once again, if you're going to fact check me, go ahead. I will address that. countries to allow, and is one of the 35 countries to allow birthright citizenship. Business Insider. These statistics are kind of wobbly. What one can notice, though, is that if there are a lot of them and there is very low restrictions, then you have the regulations to start companies. Really, just going to get more unemployment. Now, I touch on that here. Even if those figures are not legitimate or if they do not hold up to date, that what can definitely be known is that if that in practice, they could be problematic effects to the United States economy. Okay, here is a possible method to deal with immigration. Oftentimes, the rhetoric of the media details that immigrants escape poverty. What if their home countries were no longer impoverished? To be more considerate, many immigrants perhaps want to remain in their homeland or go back. Here are the top 3 ways to reduce the poverty that could be stopping them. Okay, there are the 3 ways to end the poverty for a nation. 3, redistribution of wealth. 2, foreign aid. 1, economic growth. It may be questioned, why is economic growth number 1? That is because redistribution of income was number 3, by the way, and foreign aid can both prevent economic growth. They can both prevent economic growth, not add. The problem with redistribution of income can be noted as having problems with the progressive tax system. You know how I told you about a progressive tax system and the possible problems with a progressive tax system. Those same problems can be used for redistribution of income. They're the same problems as previously stated in this article, like I said. Now let's take a look. The problems with foreign aid, including donations, are that it is unknown what the foreign aid is going to be. And politicians of the nations being donated to pocketing the money. Is that possible? Are they? Plus, the United States is printing money it does not have. That money worsens inflation for the United States. It puts the cart before the horse in a metaphoric sense. Money is not purchasing power. Perhaps digital infrastructure would be the best foreign aid. If foreign aid is food, then won't that shut restaurants down for their countries. If any commodity is donated, then the native nation's businesses associated with that commodity will have a more difficult time staying open and employing people. Perhaps there can be exceptions made for this. I mean, to be as unoffensive as possible, there can be exceptions made for this, such as for situations such as Medicare. There could be charities coming from foreign nations, yeah. I touch on that. Staying open and employing people are the ways to economic growth. They are the ways foreign aid could work. Some think of this as xenophobia, but what if immigrants, perhaps fleeing persecution, could go to other places besides the United States? Wouldn't it be easier for them to assimilate? Unity may be an important part of the United States, such as sharing culture and language. I can't cite everything in this video, or perhaps I can cite some things, but there are plenty of arguments by conservatives that the culture of the United States is a very important thing. The culture, yes. Economic growth could be reached within the communities for would-be immigrants to the United States. First, by loading the areas with law enforcement to stop crime. Therefore, business invest in those areas, increasing the amount of industries. The laws abiding there would be protected. The law abiding would be protected. The law would be enforced. And social institutions to increase morale that promote families. Yes. Create opportunities for the students or other people to work for the companies. Current immigrants, recent enough to connect to their respective old countries in the United States, could be paid to speak in and help the populations adjust for the new free market ideas. As a matter of fact, I can show you how relativism may destroy society. El relativismo puede destruir la sociedad. It's in Spanish. El relativismo. TED Talk. Relativismo TED Talk. Los efectos del relativismo. Vamos a ver los imágenes. I'm talking in Spanish a little bit, but let's take a look to see how relativism can destroy society. More relativism is when the cultures that enter, for the sake of tolerance, are given more morality. Perhaps that could be, yeah. Let's see, TED Talk, moral relativism. Plenty of people have argued against moral relativism. Now let's look at this. I can show you the TED Talk right now so you can know what I am not being xenophobic and that this is an argument that may not actually be my argument, maybe it's what I'm throwing out there. Okay, you see, why relativism will lead to a disintegrated society. Vanessa, that's youtube.com. You can see it. You can see it. You can see the video right now. It's one. It's a good video. Okay, why relativism should be beat. TEDx Talks, SAS, and this is Smiley. Okay, TED Talk. Interconnected. Interconnected world. It looks like more relativism is held in high regard. In this talk, necessarily presents an opinion that runs contrary to 21st century value of moral relativism. Merely argues that although people should exercise tolerance and control for motives, there are dangers of hypocrisy in all of moral and social relations. In terms of legal code, central impulses are clear out of the legal context. The exercise of sophomore and Singapore American school at the Singapore American. Go ahead and look at it. I encourage you to. Great source. TED Talks, reliable source. Okay. Staying open and employing people are ways to increase economic growth. They are ways for an acre block. Okay. And we got into the assimilation part. And I hope this offends no one. Economic growth could be reached for communities. Okay. And we already went through all this. And current immigrants recent enough to connect to their respective old communities in the United States could be paid to speak and help the populations adjust to the free market ideas. Think about sociology. People are more likely to listen to people who are from the same community as them. Okay? So that current immigrants or recent immigrants enough to connect with their past communities could be paid to go and speak. Okay? Digital infrastructure could also be included, should be included. To be as specific as possible, digital infrastructure is foundational services necessary to the informational technology of a country. That could be local government services given to the countries. Okay. A common concern is healthcare. How many pages do I have left in this book? Quite a bit. So maybe I'll do a part 2 video. If this runs out of time, I will do a part 2 video. Okay. Digital infrastructure could also be included. To be as specific as possible, digital infrastructure is foundational services necessary to this. Yes, I already said that. A common concern is healthcare. The digital infrastructure should be set up. Perhaps doctors from the United States and other countries desiring to contribute could be sent for charity. This is charity. People could give money. People who give money would have a desire to have it be effective, unlike taxes. And healthcare industries could share policies with poorer communities. The jobs acquired by the entering industries would result in the money to pay for healthcare. And the last resort would be developing local government healthcare systems. But probably the last resort would be the incoming charity until the local government healthcare is fully developed. Okay? As many would argue, healthcare is expensive. Countries with access to innovating healthcare, such as the United States perhaps, would want similar healthcare systems. In this system, healthcare would be a commodity. If many healthcare companies are introduced and are not favored by government through subsidies, they would innovate the best healthcare and end up charging lower costs. That could be paid for through the jobs given by the industries. Okay, did I get that all done for you? Okay, I think I got that all in there. The second system is regressive tax. Okay, now we're at the regressive tax. Many would oppose this system because the lower the income, the higher the percentage tax. That means the money the lower income people make would be lower and lower. I'm going to go back in the last thing. Many would argue healthcare is expensive. Countries with access to innovating healthcare, such as the United States, perhaps would want a similar healthcare system. In this healthcare would be commodity. This healthcare would be a commodity. If healthcare companies are introduced and not favored by the government through subsidies, They would innovate the best healthcare, end up charging lower costs. The second system is a regressive tax. Many would oppose the system because lower the income, the higher the percentage taxed. This means the money lower income people make would be lower and lower. The third system is the flat tax. This is when all incomes get taxed the same percentage, no matter how high or low. An important fact is that the same percentage of higher income is still a higher amount than the same percentage on a lower income. Okay? For instance, 13% of $1 million is a higher number than 13% of $70,000. Am I being eloquent? Now let's take another look. Page 11. By that logic, a flat tax may be the best for the economy, but do public schools teach about taxes, thus revealing a liberal bias, perhaps? One reason they allegedly do not teach about taxes is because the IRS always changes the rules. The logic described above with progressive, regressive, and flat tax would be useful, though. Okay, method. Participants will be programs that have implemented school choice with the consideration of special education. I might actually go easy on the examples here. Evaluations and measures is I think school choice is a great alternative option to the current option, but it may not be the only. It should not be the only. Okay. The following will explore some cited examples in children's educational services. In particular, the article, Can School Choice Help Students with Special Needs? Now, one important point, in capitalism, competition incentivizes improvement and innovation. By that logic, in special education, students get vouchers, and they could be larger vouchers. That would result in the public schools striving to improve to keep their business. And that of their parents. Their parents would also make the decision. Parents would. Oftentimes, people also assume private schools are innately charter or magnet, therefore giving money to schools based on the data of test results. That is simply not true, especially if the data would be collected by adjusted testing. There are a lot of adjusted tests for people with special education. There's a CAPA instead of a CESA. I believe there's a CAPA test. And that is simply true. I don't think I have to cite that. Also, special education programs can be built in. Some of the possible flaws and solutions will be listed in the examples. Okay, I'm just going to skim through this very quickly. Florida John M. McKay Scholarships for Students with Disabilities Program, 1999. The first state to include special education and vouchers, okay? Then we have the Autism Scholarship Program, the Ohio Autism Scholarship Program, 2003. On the surface, I thought it was only autistic students in special education, which would be problematic because not everyone in special education is autistic. There are a lot of other possibilities also. So I Googled, however, and I did education.ohio.gov. And the site gives their John Peterson Special Needs Scholarship Program. The latter covers non-autistic special ed students as well. Okay, so the examples aren't that important. That's why I did not show them on the laptop. 2 examples were covered of when special education was included with the option of school choice. The 2 were the earliest, Florida and Ohio. The best of both of them will be explained. I didn't explain it. I don't think it was that important. And at the end, I will point to how California can have a fixed educational system. Okay? Once again, if this video gets cut off due to time or due to capacity, I'll have a part 2 video, okay? Or part 3. All right, now let's go to the results. Result 1. This was an APA-style essay. I didn't maybe follow the format correctly, perhaps not necessarily, so let's take a look. Result 1 will be somewhat counterintuitive. California will be stated in the quality of education. The California quality education is ranked 13th to last on walletbum.com, and there is a less capitalistic incentive for schools to get funded. Okay, a financial expert on walletbum.com. I'll show you what walletbum.com is. Okay, walletbum.com. I shall show it to you. Walletbum.com. Take a look. This system.